in the heart of the Ottoman Empire, inside the towering walls of Topkapi Palace, a secret was growing. Hatice Sultan, beloved sister of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, had just learned she was pregnant. For most women, this would mean joy, hope, a future. But for Hatice it meant danger, because the last time she carried a child, she buried one. Now, as whispers echoed through the marble halls and shadows moved behind silk curtains, Hatice realized something terrifying. This pregnancy wasn't just about life. It could mean death. Her husband, the Grand Vizier, had grown distant. The palace buzzed with rumors about him and another woman. And in this palace, betrayal didn't just break hearts. It ended lives. Hatice held her belly, not with warmth, but with dread. She knew this child had the power to change everything, her status, her safety, even the throne's balance of power. And in the harem, power was blood, and blood was war. This wasn't just a pregnancy. It was a countdown. And no one, not even Hatice, knew what would happen when time ran out. At that moment, Hatice Sultan felt the world tilt. Her heart pounded, not from joy but fear. Because in the Ottoman palace, a pregnancy wasn't just personal. It was political. And hers could start a war. She sat in silence long after the physician left. Outside, the courtyard was alive with birdsong and sunlight. But inside her chamber, it felt like winter. She had every reason to be afraid. Hatice had once lost a child, a silent tragedy that nearly broke her. The grief was buried beneath layers of silk and ceremony, but it never truly left her. Now it was back, and louder than ever. But this time, the danger wasn't just inside her body. It was all around her. Whispers had been crawling through the palace, like smoke, that Ibrahim Pasha, her husband, the Grand Vizier, was spending late nights in the company of Nigger Khalfa, one of the palace's most trusted servants. Hatice had dismissed the gossip, until she couldn't anymore. He was colder now, distant, absent in body, absent in heart. And now, as she carried his child again, Hatice wondered, was he still hers? Or had his loyalty already shifted? But that wasn't the only threat, because in this palace, the harem was a battlefield. And Hatice Sultan, once a concubine, now the rising power beside the throne, was preparing for her final move, a royal wedding. If she succeeded, her children would be elevated to a level Hatice's child could never reach. And in the Ottoman Empire, bloodlines weren't just lineage. They were weapons. One new birth could rewrite the line of succession. One rumor could trigger a fall from grace. And one secret, just one, could lead to execution. Hatice knew this. She had grown up watching her father's concubines vanish without explanation. She had seen women smile at breakfast and be buried by sunset. And now, she was one misstep away from becoming one of them. So she made a decision. She wouldn't tell anyone about the pregnancy. Not yet. Not until she knew who she could trust. Not until she figured out what Ibrahim was hiding, and whether harem was moving against her. But keeping a secret in the palace was like trying to hide fire in silk. Every gesture was watched. Every word repeated. Every shadow might have ears. And there was another fear. The one she couldn't say out loud, even to herself. What if the baby didn't survive? Her first child had been born too early, too small. He never cried. He never even opened his eyes. Hatice held him once, then never again. The grief had consumed her. And now, as her hands trembled over her stomach, she wondered, would she have to bury another? Or worse, would this child live, only to become a pawn in the palace's deadly game? There were no answers, only silence, and the ticking of fate. Narrator, quiet, ominous. In the most powerful empire on earth, Hatice Sultan sat in a gilded cage, beautiful, pregnant, alone, and somewhere beyond her chamber walls, someone was already plotting her downfall. In the harem, children weren't just family. They were weapons. A baby could unite powerful factions, or ignite a war. A child with the wrong mother, the wrong father, could tip the balance of power inside the empire's most dangerous place. And Hatice knew. Her child was both blessing and threat. To understand why Hatice was afraid, you need to understand the palace she lived in. Topkapi was a place of beauty and blood. Behind the silks and gold were scars. Behind every smile, a secret. Every hallway echoed with footsteps and with schemes. And Hatice, she was royalty, the sister of Sultan Suleiman. But that didn't make her untouchable. It made her a target. She had married for love. That was her first mistake. Ibrahim Pasha, once a slave, then a soldier, now Grand Vizier, had been her everything. Their love had once shaken the court. It was bold, scandalous, forbidden, but powerful, too powerful. Their marriage upset the balance. And in Topkapi, when the balance shifts, someone always pays. Now, years later, Hatice was pregnant again. But the man she loved? He was slipping away. Ibrahim was no longer her Ibrahim. He stayed out late. He whispered behind closed doors. And he stopped looking at her like he used to. But Hatice saw everything. And one night she followed him. Down the shadowed corridor. Past the guards who looked away. To the servants' quarters. There, through a barely cracked door. She saw him. With her. Nigger Kalfa. The woman Hatice had once trusted. The woman who had dressed her. Cared for her. Served her. Was now standing inches from her husband. Their hands almost touching. Their eyes full of something dangerous. Hatice didn't cry. She didn't scream. She turned away. And walked back. Heart pounding like a war drum. Because now, it wasn't just her marriage at risk. It was her life. Pregnant. Alone. Betrayed. And still she couldn't tell anyone. Not her brother, the Sultan. Not her ladies-in-waiting. Not even her closest allies. Because in Topkapi, a secret was safer than the truth. The weeks dragged on. Her belly grew. The whispers grew louder. Some said she was ill. Others said she was cursed. One night, she woke to the sound of footsteps. A shadow in her doorway. She reached for the dagger beneath her pillow. The one she'd started sleeping with since she became pregnant. But it was just a servant. With a note. No name. No seal. Just a single sentence. What grows inside you will never see the throne. She didn't sleep again that night. Hatice was terrified, but not paralyzed. She began moving her pieces. She called in loyal guards. She reassigned servants. She burned letters. She watched everyone. And then she summoned Nigger. Face to face. The woman she had once trusted. The woman she had watched standing far too close to her husband. Hatice looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You will leave this palace. You will be married. You will forget his name." Nigger trembled, but said nothing, because she knew, in the palace, exile was a gift. The alternative was death. But the damage was done. Hatice was still pregnant, still alone, still terrified that every time she closed her eyes, she might wake up to find herself bleeding, or worse, her child taken before birth. Because inside the gilded walls of Topkapi, babies didn't just cry. They changed dynasties. And Hatice, she was about to give birth to a child that no one, not her husband, not her enemies, not even her brother, truly wanted. So she did the only thing she could. She disappeared. Stopped attending court. Stopped hosting guests. Stopped smiling. She withdrew into silence. Because in the Empire's most dangerous palace, sometimes the only way to survive is to vanish before they make you disappear. Hatice had learned this long ago. In the Sultan's harem, survival wasn't about being the most loved. It was about being the most feared. But now she wasn't feared. She was pregnant, vulnerable, a walking target in silk robes. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Because at that exact moment, the most dangerous woman in the empire, Hatice Sultan, was preparing to change everything. Hatice wasn't born royal. She was once a slave, then a concubine, and now she was climbing fast. Rumors swirled that Sultan Suleiman planned to marry her, an unthinkable move that would make her the legal wife of the Sultan and her sons, undeniable heirs. If that happened, every other child in the harem, including Hatice's unborn baby, would instantly become a threat to be removed. Quietly, permanently. Hatice knew Hatice. They had once shared laughter, secrets, sisterhood. But now Hatice was different. Cunning, strategic, ruthless. And Hatice was in her way. One morning, Hatice found a bundle left outside her chamber door. It was wrapped in gold silk. Inside, a single pomegranate cut in half. At first glance, innocent. But in the palace, nothing was innocent. Pomegranates symbolized fertility and blood. It was a message. Hatice didn't flinch. She summoned her most loyal servant, a mute woman named Lael. Lael had no tongue, but she had eyes and ears everywhere. Hatice whispered only one command: follow harem. Watch. Report. But never speak. Within days, Lael returned with something far worse than Hatice imagined. Harem wasn't just planning a wedding. She was gathering allies, guards, midwives, even poisoners. Hatice's pregnancy wasn't just a problem. It was a liability. That night, Hatice couldn't sleep. She paced her chambers until sunrise, one hand on her growing belly, the other gripping her dagger. She couldn't trust Ibrahim. He was too lost in his own ambition. She couldn't go to her brother. Suleiman was blind when it came to harem. She was alone, except for one person. As dawn broke, Hatice did something she hadn't done in years. She visited the tomb of her first child, the one she lost years ago. No guards, no veil, just her, the grave, and the quiet. She knelt, placed her hand on the cold stone, and whispered, "I won't let this one be taken from me." And from that moment on, Hatice changed. She began writing letters, secret ones, to allies outside the palace. She summoned physicians from foreign lands. She started building a quiet network of protection, guards who answered only to her. And she made one final, chilling decision. If anything happened to her, if she died during childbirth, her enemies would not survive her. Hatice Sultan, once soft, grieving, heartbroken, was now something else entirely. A mother, a warrior, a ghost in silk armor. Because in the Ottoman palace, the only thing more dangerous than a jealous rival was a woman with nothing left to lose. And Hatice, she was prepared to lose everything, except her child. Hatice didn't cry. Not at first. She simply stood there, letter trembling in her hand, the ink still fresh, the words soaked in betrayal. It was a love letter. Soft, intimate, secret. But the worst part? It wasn't addressed to her. It was for Nigger Kalfa, a servant girl in the palace. Quiet, modest, easily overlooked. Until now. Because now, she was carrying Hatice's husband's heart. Hatice folded the letter carefully, slipped it into her robes, and walked out of the room like nothing had happened. But inside something shattered. For weeks, she had told herself the coldness in Ibrahim's eyes was just stress, that the distance was just temporary. But it wasn't. It was love, for someone else. And now, she wasn't just alone in the palace. She was alone and pregnant, with the child of a man who had already given his soul to another. But this wasn't just about heartbreak. In the Ottoman Empire, love didn't end in tears. It ended in blood. Hatice was a sultan's sister. She was royal. Ibrahim Pasha was a slave who had risen through the ranks. Their marriage had been a scandal, blessed only because of Sultan Suleiman's deep trust in his Grand Vizier. But betrayal? That wasn't just a personal failure. It was political suicide. If this affair became public, Ibrahim wouldn't just lose his marriage. He would lose his head. And Hatice had a choice. Expose him, watch the empire tear him apart, or stay silent and let herself rot in shame. She chose neither. Instead, she waited. One night, she followed Ibrahim. Silently. Alone. He moved quickly through the palace corridors, past the guards, down a forgotten hallway, and into a servant's chamber. Hatice stood in the dark, hidden behind the wall, and listened. There was laughter, soft whispers, then the sound of a kiss. Hatice didn't move. She didn't scream, didn't run. She just watched, because now she knew something even darker than betrayal. She knew how to destroy him. The next morning, Ibrahim found a note on his desk. No signature, just 5 words. Does the Sultan know yet? It was enough to make his hands shake, because in this palace, secrets never stayed buried long, and if the Sultan discovered he had dishonored his sister, even love wouldn't save him. But Hatice didn't tell her brother. Not yet. Instead, she turned to the one thing she still had control over, the child growing inside her. She began sleeping with a dagger beneath her pillow. She sent trusted guards to shadow niggers every step. And every time Ibrahim came to her chambers, she smiled and said nothing, because now she held the power. And she knew, if this palace could take everything from her, then she could take everything back with one whisper. In the Ottoman Empire, betrayal was a game played in shadows. And Hatice Sultan, she had just learned the rules. And now, she was ready to play. Narrator low, deliberate. A week later, a servant girl vanished. No warnings, no goodbyes, just silence. Her name was Nigger Kalfa, the same woman Hatice had seen in her husband's eyes in that letter in her nightmares. Some say she fled in shame. Others whispered she was taken in the middle of the night. But those closest to the palace, they believe something else. They say Hatice didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply watched the walls close in. And when the time was right, she made one quiet request to someone loyal. A favor buried beneath layers of silence. Because in the harem, justice didn't come in daylight. It came in shadows. No witnesses. No trace. Just a name erased. And Ibrahim Pasha? He knew. But he said nothing. Because in the Ottoman court, power was fragile. One wrong word, and he could join Nigger wherever she had gone. So he held his wife, kissed her forehead, and pretended he didn't feel the knife she had buried in his fate. This wasn't just a tale of love gone wrong. It was a warning, because in Topkapi Palace, secrets don't sleep. They wait.